Hello, and welcome to 9-4 Radio, number 3. This is a special 9-4 Radio. I'll be 100% honest. I shelved my podcasting and my blogging plans today, just so I could record a podcast and send out a blog today, February 7th, 2020. I listened to an unbelievable podcast this morning, and I was inspired. The information is mind-blowing, but the delivery and the impact are why I shelved everything that I was going to do today in order to expand the awareness, right? I imagine you all are not necessarily Tim Ferriss Show listeners, and that's or followers of Brene Brown. I mean, honestly, some of the topics that she talks about have been in her books. They've obviously been in some of her blogs. They're in her teaching content, but I'm the center of that Venn diagram, and for the outliers. This is for you, honestly. It's for me, but it's for you as well. So I'm talking about Tim Ferriss Show number 409 featuring Brene Brown. This dropped yesterday, so February 6th, 2020. I'm going to link to the iTunes and the Spotify links to those podcasts. What I'm covering is obviously what's super important to me, and I am going to paraphrase and put my verbiage on it. I can't recommend highly enough that you go listen to that podcast for yourself, and I guarantee you there's going to be takeaways. She talks about, just as a broad overview, they talk about self-acceptance versus complacency, how to be a high achiever and not beat yourself up in the process. We talk about midlife crisis, I guess, midlife milestones, and the armor that the universe makes you take off eventually. I talk about relationships, how to have, like the difference between in a family, a child-focused, parent-focused, and a family-focused family. And they get into some mindset techniques. So becoming neutral, and that's not to say to shut off your emotions, but to become neutral to things. Brene talks about, giving up alcohol 23 years ago and how she, working the 12 steps in Alcoholics Anonymous, how you're not running away from alcohol, you're not running towards alcohol, you're just neutral to it. Eventually you get to a point where it's not even on your radar, right? So that's there for you. I am going to focus on the first part, so the first half. I'm not going to dive deep into the relationship stuff, even though I think it's unbelievable the way that she, like the tactics that she and her husband use to be there for each other. And maybe that's something that I'll get into in a different podcast. But I'm definitely going to talk about the high achieving versus self-acceptance, and then midlife and armor, right? And what that means for 9-4 coaching, like what that means for me. So, so this is going to be a deeper dive into my story, and it's going to be a deeper dive into 9-4 coaching. So inspired by that Tim Ferriss episode, the podcast is really a deeper level of my story. And I realize it took like 4.5 minutes to get here, but that's what it's going to be. And I think, honestly, that's why it inspired me enough to shelve all my plans, right? It was very personal. And it's a story that I feel needs to be heard. It's going to make me more, it's taking, so diving back into the episode, it's taking a layer of armor off that no longer serves me. And creating space to have a deeper connection, right? 3 episodes into my podcast, you know, a lot of people feel like they know me, you know, and a lot of people that know me feel like there's parts of me that they don't know, right? I'm going to do my best today to explore what I had written in the blog, what I was inspired to talk about today, and where, like, the big scary goal that I actually set out for 9-4 coaching that I haven't really told anybody about. So buckle up. I'm going to start with a question that Tim had given to Brene, and it was basically because she's a shame researcher. She makes it very clear she's not a therapist, she's a researcher. And he talks about the difference between embracing yourself for where you're at and being complacent. So there's a line, right? Like, there is 100% self-acceptance that where I am is where I need to be, and I never need to progress, and I'm exactly great where I am. And then and embodying that and being complacent. Like, that's there's a lot of there's a lot of talk about acceptance, and it's accepting a lower version of yourself. And that's not okay. There always, and we'll talk about that. But there's a line where self-acceptance turns into complacency, right? Or, and there's a place where high achieving turns into self-abuse. So, where's the line? Where's the line to be as high achieving and as self-loving as possible? And I haven't figured it out yet, but I wanted to shine some light on it. So, and tell my story that I've been there, and I'm working on figuring it out. And I don't have it figured out, 100%. But sometimes it's nice to know that somebody else has been there, or somebody else is still kind of in there. Like, oh man, I was into that ditch. Now I'm on the shoulder, but I was in that ditch, and I'll tell you how I got out of it. And it might not work for you, but sometimes just knowing that somebody else was there is comforting, and it gives you the strength to endure and, like, get yourself out of that ditch. So I'm going to talk about my high achieving, right? So I've been a high achiever for a long time, and that's not to say that I've done amazing things. I've collected a lot of certificates. So I look at achievement as checking boxes. I'm not gonna say I haven't done awesome things, but I haven't won a Nobel Prize or anything like that. But I checked a lot of boxes, and I was handsomely rewarded in my military career for checking all those boxes. If you ask anybody that's known me from my military career, high achiever would definitely be something that they would agree to. I went to a lot of schools, and I volunteered for some overseas missions, and I volunteered for extra duties, and I did really well at them. In my blog I go through my promotion history, which is kind of irrelevant, but I'm in the podcast. But I was rewarded by achieving. But the thing about it is, and I don't get me wrong, I'm super proud of my career. I did a lot of it because I wanted it to mean something. It wasn't because I loved the military. And that's not to say I didn't believe in it. But I made a decision when I was 18 to join the military. And that was really uncommon for my friend group. Not to say that I didn't go to high school with anybody that didn't join the military or that joined the military. There were a handful of us, but in my friend group, it was really unorthodox. It was really out of the blue. I didn't have a lot of family members that had done military service, so it was a very unique decision. And I've talked about it in the past. It was something that I felt like I had already made the decision. I felt at a very young age that it's nothing I talked about, but it felt like something I was going to do. So I can't explain, this patriotic drive and this mission. But I did. I made that call when I was a little after my 18th birthday. And my best friend from high school wasn't a fan, right? And for a multitude of reasons, we didn't get into a lot of them. I imagine, some of it was just personal safety. Some of it was the unknown. I mean, obviously we're all a little bit scared of the unknown. But I chose the military. So for the price of a really close friend, I chose the military. So in my mind, my career needed to be worthwhile. It needed to be worthy of a really, really high cost. And I never gave anybody else a voice. It was, I was doing a lot, and every time I got promoted, I was super excited, and I wanted to do a really good job. I was, just getting promoted wasn't enough. I needed to be great at what I did, and I equated being great with what my annual reviews looked like, going to schools, making sure that I had a lot of certificates in my promotion packets. It wasn't just getting promoted to get promoted. It was being undeniably good. I think if you talk to a lot of people that worked with me, they would 100% agree that by the time I was promoted, I was the undeniable best candidate. And that's not to brag, that's just the truth. And honestly, I got there out of a lot of fear, and it's not something that I celebrate a ton. It was something I did. I'm super proud that I could do that, but it was solely based out of making my career worthwhile to someone who wasn't even in my life. So high achieving. And you can see how that line gets really, really blurry. Like I said, I still have a pretty complicated relationship with the military, and that's a good thing. I wouldn't be who I am today if I didn't do that. And it'll all make sense. I'm totally I totally believe that. And in a lot of ways, it's just part of that, it's part of that unraveling, where things become clear when you look back. So talking about that line between high achieving and compassion, I guess, for yourself more than anything. It's something that I'm working on. I'm working towards. And I think we all kind of are. It's a lot, man. I'll tell you what, doing what I'm doing right now is out of love. And the feeling that I have is so much different. I'm not chasing anybody. There's not like a metallic penny taste of fear in my mouth. I am doing this because I love it. And it feels really amazing. And so that's why I continue to do it. But I'm going to move on from the self-acceptance and high achieving. That was more of a story just to let you know that I know I have some experience there, right? And we're all working on it. I'm definitely making steps every day. That's getting me closer to that drive, but then taking care of myself too. And so I'm like halfway out of the ditch. But if you're in the ditch, let's talk. My way of getting out of the ditch may not work for you, but I know about it. You know, I know how I put myself in the ditch, and I know how I got myself as far out as I can. And I'm talking to people who are like on the shoulder of the road, and some who are even like on the road to get myself out of that ditch. But that doesn't mean that I can't help you too. So I'll close that piece off and then move into another, like the other mind-blowing part of the episode was when Brene talked about it was an extension of the like the compassion and stuff like that, and how when you get to midlife, you hit this milestone. It's not a crisis. She doesn't call it a crisis. She calls it a milestone. And it's when the universe, I think I quoted it in the blog, and I'll get as close as I can here, but basically the universe visits you, puts its arms around you, pulls you in close, and tells you that it's not fucking around, that you're going to die. And you need to live into the gifts that you were given. And yeah, that obviously hits home for me. I guess it happened when she talks about late 30s, and I mean, I was like 37, 36, when I got into the universes, in their loving arms, and heard like a really harsh guidance. I didn't have words for it at the time, and I think that's why it was so powerful today. I just knew I couldn't. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew that I couldn't be where I was. And sometimes just knowing that is enough to take action. It was enough for me to take action. So, yeah, I left a really secure, like I left a lot of safety. I left a lot of security. I left a lot of comfort. And I didn't have words for it. But I knew that I wasn't living into my best self. I wasn't living into my highest self. And we talked about that, right? Like, I was achieving a lot of things. And then I got in an inspection and didn't feel like I didn't feel good about it. And I did a lot of soul searching, and I knew it was time to go. And that was really hard to find words for, but now that I look at it from this perspective, and it was I'm like, oh, okay, well, it makes a lot of sense. So, yeah. let's talk about that. Kind of like when I've been in the ditch, and like I just said that I got out. Like I got out a little bit, and I got out. If you're in there, like let's talk about that. Same thing. I don't have everything figured out, especially with the. I'm getting there. I left my full-time military career, and I left my full-time coaching career, CrossFit coaching, and I started 9-4 coaching, and I'm definitely working my way towards growing or living into the gifts that I was given. And it feels, I'm gonna tell you, it feels very good. Even as like emotional I was thinking about that day, it feels good to even just like talk about it and cut this podcast and write the blog, just because I know there are people out there that are gonna listen to this and it's gonna resonate with them. And I know there's people that are gonna listen to this and know somebody who needs to hear this, or like needs to read my blog or whatever, or listen to like the actual podcast, and like put words to it. Because as strong a feeling as I had, having the words to explain it and like remind me that like, or reassure myself that like, I'm not crazy. I'm unique. There's so many people that wait so long to do something, to listen to the voice, listen to the universe. Man, it feels so much better on this side. So I wanted to shine a light on that. I was super impactful, as you well heard. But yeah, it's that loving extra push from the universe that we're just here for this go around. I don't know what anybody else believes, but we're here now, so we might as well put this to some use, right? So I'm gonna move on to the last part of the interview. That everything's an extension of everything else, and Brene talks about armor. Which obviously resonates with my military service, and it's very visual. So she talked about it, and I could see it, which is always really helpful. So she talks about, just as humans, we want to survive. So the best way to survive is to protect yourself from something that causes pain. And so she calls it armor. And we unknowingly pick up armor all the time, from when we're kids to even today. I still pick up armor, right? And in order to grow into your highest self, in order to transcend or evolve from where you were, you gotta remove some of that armor. Ideally, you'd remove it all, but I'm human. I still have my own armor. So eventually you put armor on to protect yourself, and then you look back, or you find yourself now, wearing a heavy metal suit that doesn't serve you anymore. It protected you when you needed it to, and then you just never gave yourself the permission to take it off. And 100%, like that spoke to me, like to my core. And it's a lot of the same, like there was a lot of guilt when I left the military. Anytime anybody, you leave an identity, right? That's who you are. And to use armor was fantastic, because that's visual. Because that's very, everybody has watched something where somebody was wearing armor, whether it's a knight in a cartoon, in a live action movie, everybody gets that. And, or I guess most people get that. I can't say everybody. But, eventually that armor gets real heavy. When you needed it at the time, you were so, I was so, I guess I'll use myself. I needed it so badly that, the weight of it didn't matter. And then you just carry it because you just get used to carrying it. And then, the universe, I knew I had some heavy armor before the universe talked to me, and that's where they say, the universe talks in whispers at first, and I just didn't pay any attention to it. I imagine most folks don't. But, yeah, the universe, when it talked to me, I needed to take off some armor, and I fought it for a long time, because honestly, to be 100% honest, I fought it because I told myself that I built the suit, and it's my responsibility to stay in the suit because I built it. Saying that out loud doesn't make any sense, but I will tell you right now that that was very real. Kind of like I put myself on my island, and that's my punishment. That's my responsibility now, is I built this suit thinking that obviously no one else builds suits of armor. And so it was really difficult to give myself permission to take off armor. And I've been doing it. I just don't have words for it. So, credit to the people in my life who let me do it without having words. And sometimes, I'm not going to say they ripped off parts of my armor, but they highly encouraged me to take off parts of my armor that I wasn't 100% comfortable taking off yet. And that's totally fine. She talks about replacing that armor with curiosity. So, I hate to use the word triggered because I think it's overused, but where something you'd normally do a pattern, and you don't want to be that person anymore, you just replace that with curiosity. Oh man, I noticed I got real pissed off when I got cut off in traffic. Why? Where, before that was just part of your armor. You guys are driving crazy. I'm just trying to survive and trying not to get run off the road. Traffic around here, for sure. Noah's got, nothing requires road rage. For sure, nothing requires road rage. And so to just replace that with, why did I get so mad? I could feel my heart racing. Why was that? Even replacing that, and so it's not to say that you're 100% okay with it. You still got cut off and you still, had that physical reaction, but you didn't dive, you didn't throw everything into that victim psychology or that old pattern, right? So just replacing that armor with some curiosity, or hey, I remember, if you're in a relationship, I remember hearing that and it made me feel something. That's usually, that's why we have armor, so you don't feel pain, right? And I get it, it's a little bit out there, but when you feel something, use that as a trigger for you. Hey, something's happening. I'm feeling something because I literally felt something in my body. And then throw curiosity that way, because if you get hurt, right, it doesn't feel good to end a relationship, and then it doesn't feel good in your body. It hurts your heart. So then all of a sudden you put armor on. So then you're not going to let anybody in, so that you never have to feel loss. And replace that, curiosity, or replace that armor with curiosity. Like, oh man, that actually, what you said hurt my heart. And not to like be super dramatic if that's not your, if it doesn't feel comfortable, but just to call attention to it. Like, I don't know why, I just know that, like what you said hurt. Or I felt my chest tighten, or my throat got tight. That's okay. That's totally okay. And actually, that's an easier conversation to have. Like, you felt the sensation, and that's good too. So taking off that armor so that you can grow into your gifts that the universe, God, whatever you prescribe to, the gifts that you were given, the gifts that you were provided. And it's all about growth, and it's all about connection, and that's what we're all here for, I imagine. In my heart of hearts, we're here to have an experience. So having an experience fully, is part of, taking that armor off is part of it. So, that was a pretty deep dive into an amazing episode. Like I said, Tim Ferriss Show number 409 with Brene Brown, really inspired me to take some armor off. And I want to close by talking about how this translates into what I'm doing. So with 9-4 coaching, I've had a very unique experience. I've had some complicated relationships with the military, but I've had a very unique experience in general. And I have a lot of perspective and a lot of experience to offer. I have a lot of tools. Like I said, I don't have all the answers, but I have a lot of tools. And so the blog and the podcast, that's all just getting tools out. That's not having dialogues, that's not having discussions. That's just collecting all the tools that I have found useful, and I'm getting them to you as fast as I can. Resources and all the things. Just expanding the reach, really, of tools that you might not ever get exposed to. And so that's the reason behind 9-4 Radio. That's the reason behind my blog. I want to get into having true dialogues, true discussions. I want to make an impact. I want to create an environment where people feel compelled to take their armor off. Not all of it necessarily, but they feel compelled to take some armor off because they see how rewarding it is on the other side, and they want to do it. I don't know exactly what that looks like. I know what I want it to look like. So I'm developing talks, discussions, right? Based on books, based on like what I write in my blog, what I write in, or what I talk about in my podcast. Topics, just general topics. I want to have talks, so I want to go into breweries. I want to go into coffee shops. I want to go into VFWs and American Legions. I'm never going to shake that military slant or military experience. I spent 20 years of my adult life living that, and there's a lot of value in there. There's a lot of value to that experience. And there's a lot of connection. There's a lot of connection without words for military folks and veterans. So I want to work with individuals, and I want to work with companies, and the big scary goal that I haven't really talked about is I want to plan and execute organizational development for the North Dakota Guard. I don't know how that's ever going to happen. I have a very complicated relationship with them. But they're home. The North Dakota Guard is home. It's a home. It's not my only home, but I'm always going to have a deep respect and love for the North Dakota Guard, and I want to be a part of their constant improvement. The soldiers that are in the Guard, both part-time and full-time, they're the backbone of their communities in a lot of ways. And developing a better North Dakota Guard is developing a better North Dakota. And if you can't, make improvements, starting with your own home, right? Like, what are you doing? So that's what I want to do with 9-4 coaching. I want to build strong communities, and ultimately I want to help evolve the culture of the North Dakota Guard. So keep listening, keep reading my blog. Even if you're not associated with the military, this is for you. Anybody that's willing to give me some time and some attention to see what I got going on, I'm forever grateful for. So if any of this spoke to you, I definitely recommend you tell your friends about it. My episode, and then also the Tim Ferriss Show, episode 409 with Brene Brown. If you want to sneak over to skeds.dorkydigital.com, you will be able to see a post that I put together based on this episode as well. It's not quite a companion to the podcast episode, but it's pretty close. Until next time, I really appreciate you spending time with me. Reach out, 94coaching.gmail, 9.4.coaching@gmail.com. Find me on Facebook, find me on Instagram. If you were at all inspired to do some things, start doing them or reach out. I'd love to talk. All right, we'll talk to you next time.